go as far as you can see. When you get there, you'll see more. This is exactly the story of my life, because I got there and I said, oh, there's probably 100 different roles that I could do that are significantly higher, significantly further. And English is not my first language. So there was a lot of reasons why it wouldn't have worked. But yet I said, okay, well, others do it. So how can I be that first one that does that in my community, in my surroundings? And I kept pushing, and I kept pushing, and I kept pushing. I kept on pushing, and I ended up vice president of a Fortune 500 company, managing a team of 2,500 people in 60 countries.
Life is not about maintaining status quo. It's about pushing out of your comfort zone, pushing past the obstacles, pushing past the things that you know. And in this podcast, Keep On Pushing Stories, our guests share their real, raw, unfiltered stories of how they have faced the challenges and come out on the other side even better. And in this episode, I'm so excited to welcome my newfound friend, Agata Bloswick, to the show. Agata, welcome to Keep On Pushing Stories.
Thanks for having me, and I'm super happy to meet you in person. I love your story, so I'm really glad to be here.
Thank you, thank you. It's great to meet you as well. I learned a little bit about your story, and I'm excited and enthralled by it. So, Agata, we always start by asking our guests, what it is that they do. How do they serve? How do they bring value to the lives of others? So please do tell us that.
So I have spent about 20 years in the field of pharmaceutical industry, clinical trials, so doing drug development on various drugs from cardiovascular to oncology. I also spent some time doing COVID vaccines. So when everybody was locked down, I was really working hard to make sure we have both the vaccines and the medicine. And I have been doing that for 20 years. On top of that, for about 10 years, I have been doing a lot of the social work inside my neighborhood, inside my community, trying to work and rally the people so that they realize their home doesn't just end at their doorstep, that they can do some good for their community. And so we have been painting graffiti, picking up garbage, and beautifying our neighborhoods so that they are nicer. And most importantly, that people feel like this is on them, rather than, that someone like a government to fix that. So that has been my double life, let's say, so far in trying to do some good in the world.
Yeah, indeed. You say double life, but it sounds to me like you have a really strong sense of community. Thank you for all the work that you have done in the lab, especially during COVID, as you mentioned, and of course in your community. So if someone wanted to connect with you for whatever reason, Agata, how would they do that?
Best to find me on my LinkedIn account. My name is Agata Bloswick, and you can find me there. I also have a website, agatabloswick.com. So looking forward to any chats. If I can help you in any way, give you some advice, or just have a chat, I'm available.
All right. So on LinkedIn and at your website, agatabloswick.com, correct?
Correct.
All right. Thank you for that, Agata. No, the question that we're always asking, that we're really curious to know, is what we call your keep on pushing story. We'd love to hear of one instance, I'm sure you have many, in your life where you had to overcome a significant challenge or step out of your comfort zone to, as we said earlier, become even better, more powerful. So please do share with us your keep on pushing story.
Yeah. So I think there's the story of my clinical research career is a keep on pushing story, because when I started my university, I started studying chemistry. And so when you study chemistry, you spend a lot of time in the lab, and you're just there and your pipettes and your little chemicals and so on. And I was really happy that halfway through my degree, I ended up in Germany in a very renowned university cancer research center. I spent 2 months of internship there. And after those 2 months, I realized, oh my goodness, I do not want to spend time in my lab. I really don't like working in a lab, but I'm here studying chemistry. What have I done to myself, right? And so that was the first moment when I needed to actually say, what am I going to do when I grow up, and how to turn this sunk cost of 3 years of university into something I'm going to do. And that's how I, in the end, ended up in clinical research, far away from the lab, but actually working with real patients and trying to design clinical trials that will help them with this, with any diseases that need to be cured. And I think that when I started, I absolutely had no idea how far a career will go, what I could do. All I could see is what was around me. I was working for a small Polish company, and there was maybe 25 of us. And all I saw was, some other companies, maybe bigger, but the project manager was like this, highest possible role that could be there. And so I said, okay, well, I'm 25. I'm now in the entry-level position. I have probably 30 years or 40 years of career ahead of me. So that's what I'll do. I'll become a project manager somewhere down the road, right? Because that's as far as I could see. There was nobody in my community that I could ask. I could look, what are the jobs? It was relatively early in Poland in the development of clinical research. And so wanting to be that person who manages a large clinical trial was like the top of the highest mountain there could be, right? And so in the end, I got there relatively quickly. And then I discovered that there's a whole variety of other jobs that exist, right? And so this is how we connected, actually, is because your quote that, go as far as you can see. When you get there, you'll see more. This is exactly the story of my life, because I got there and I said, oh, there's probably 100 different roles that I could do that are significantly higher, significantly further. And why not push, right? I was what Shonda Rhimes calls FOD. I was the first, only, and different. I was in Poland. I was working from home. I was not native speaker. I was, relatively far away, not English on my first language. So there was a lot of reasons why it wouldn't have worked. But yet I said, okay, well, others do it. So how can I be that first one that does that in my community, in my surroundings? And I kept pushing, and I kept pushing, and I kept pushing. I kept on pushing, and I ended up vice president of a Fortune 500 company, managing a team of 2,500 people in 60 countries. So I think that that's the story of the keep on pushing. And it all started with that realization that one day in the lab in Germany, halfway through my university, that I really don't like to work in the lab, and I need to very quickly pivot and decide what I'm going to do with the rest of my career.
Indeed. So it seems to me, this, side quirk, I pretend to be funny at times, that the figures 2 and 5, 25, play an important role in your career. You were at a company where there were maybe 25 people um, on
Yeah.
staff, and now you're managing, leading 2,500 people. So awesome, and congratulations on that. But Agata, let's go back to your interest in chemistry, and then thinking, wow, this might not be what I want to do with the rest of my life when I grow up, as you said. Um, was there a process, looking back now, that you went through mentally to make that transition? And what would you say to someone who has invested 3 years or 5 years into a field and then woke up one day and go, "Wow, this is not exactly what I thought my life would be." How do
Yeah.
you then find the next mountain?
So I think that that's a really interesting one, because I want to say I really enjoy those pivots. That was that pivot back then, right? I realized I don't like to do that. So how can I make the best of a terrible situation? I've invested that much. I have 2 more years to go, and then the rest of my life. And the whole concept of, well, it's only been 3 years and it's only 2 years to go, but then it's the rest of my life ahead, right? So I didn't want to commit the rest of the life. So I needed to think on my feet and say, okay, what is it that I don't like about this job? And what is it that I liked about this job? What I liked about working in drug development in the lab was the potential to help cure some diseases. It was working with people in international environment. It was using my brain to solve some problems. What I didn't like is the mundane, repetitive work, and being tied to schedules they're very rigid in the lab, right? You have something you need to leave sitting on a cooker for 15 minutes, and it cannot be 17 minutes. So you're kind of dependent on somebody else's time in there instead of my own schedule. So these were the things I asked myself what I liked, what I didn't like about this. And in the end decided, okay, I'm going to finish my master's. I'm going to graduate, and then I'm going to look for work that meets the criteria of working on drug development, working in international environment, and trying to cure diseases, and try to look for a job that doesn't require those rigid schedules. And I think what's really interesting is what when I see the pattern, this is where I am right now. So after 20 years, not 25, 20 years in the industry, I'm now making another pivot, right? Which is I've done this amazing career and now I'm pivoting into something completely different. I know we'll get to that later, but that shows that moment that I have changed my entire life back then in university and changed the trajectory, gave me that feeling, okay, if I did it then, I can do it now, and I know I'm going to succeed.
Indeed. So here it is that you're 3 years in this degree, 2 more years to go. It's not where you want to be, you discover. And some people could look at that moment and go, wow, I have wasted 3 years. But instead, you look at it as really, I've learned some things, I've had some experiences, and how do I now use this experience to go to the next level, to pivot, and maybe to complete this first part of the journey. And I think that's important, Agata, because sometimes we feel like our life is only in segment, and one thing that we do in this part doesn't impact the other part of our life. But the reality is that it is all interconnected, and the lessons and the experiences aren't wasted because we may have pivoted. Um,
And we never start from the beginning, right? We start from that experience. So it's not that when you pivot, you reset to when you were 17, right? You just start over, but you start with all the experiences that you've gained in the meantime. So I think that that's a really good place to be.
exactly. And so that pivot, what I heard from you is that, well, first of all, you did an assessment. What do I like about what I'm doing now, and what would I want to change? And so, what would my ideal world look like? So it sounded to me like you created a new vision for what your life could be like, and then you had the courage to step out and go after that. And so if you fast forward 20 years, as you just mentioned, you know, what the decision that you made basically pivoted you, created the trajectory you use, the term you use, to be here, to now move on to the next level, and to be able to create some new experiences and impact lives in a bigger way, from 25 to 2,500 persons. What would you say are the lessons? What do you take away from that journey?
I think the biggest lesson is don't ever think that that's it, right? So if you want more, there's more, and you have to find a way to find the more for yourself. I think that's number one. And so you're kind of in control of your own destiny. If you really want to go somewhere, you'll find a way to get there. Even if you don't see anybody around you who has gone there, that means you can be the first one, right? Or find somebody not around you immediately, but find somebody online who's been there, done that. This is why I love reading autobiographies. This is why I love listening to interviews and podcasts with interesting people who I aspire to pick and learn something from, because that way I can say, okay, they've done this. It can't be that hard, right? It's like if somebody has done it, it's possible. So that's probably one of the biggest takeaways from all of that. And I think the other one is really, if you love what you're doing, if you find the why you're doing that, you'll be able to achieve anything. If you don't like it, then you probably need to sit and revisit. And it's okay to let go of the things that you don't like at work, in your life, or anything else, right? Life doesn't have to be, a culmination of all the things that you hate doing, right? You can delegate, you can just stop doing them, you can find ways to not be doing things you don't like in your life, and find the things that you like to do in your life, and that will be a much better life.
Indeed. So FOD, while you may be the first and the only and you are different, it really doesn't mean that in my mind that there are no examples out there that you can find and inspirations or inspirational persons that you can
Yes,
aspire to. So in your
absolutely.
story, you saw the guy who headed up your team and you go, wow, that's a really high mountain. So although maybe there was never a woman or nobody from your background, whatever, gone there, it doesn't negate the fact that what somebody else has done, you can do, even if nobody like you, quote unquote,
Yes.
done it before, correct?
Absolutely. That's exactly it. So I find inspiration in very people who completely don't look like me, don't even do things exactly the same I do, or are in a completely different industry. But there's always something you can learn and say, okay, this is how they've done. So one of the things that I do a lot actually is I have been stalking people on LinkedIn. So when I saw somebody who's in the place where I want to go next in my career, I would actually go in and read their LinkedIn bio, say, okay, so this is what they've done. This is how many years they spent in this company. This is who they're connected with. How did they do that? And sometimes I would even write them a message, even though we had no idea who they are. And people were really eager to share, like, this is how I got where I am. Not to help me, right? Not to connect me, not to find someone who can give me a job, but more to inspire in how they got there. And very often it would be simpler than it looked, right? It's
Mhm.
sometimes just a matter of finding that spark of inspiration and just trying to apply it, and that's how you can get anywhere.
So finding that spark of inspiration and reaching out because you're kind of touching on although we're not talking about teams per se and teamwork, what I'm hearing is that no one succeeds by themselves in any event, no matter what it is that you do. And so you may not know these people on LinkedIn, you stalk them, um, in a good way, of course.
In a good way,
Yeah.
right? It was always very positive stalking.
Exactly. But in that way, they now become part of your team.
Absolutely.
Because
So I
right?
always thought that you need to have in your team, is like some people call it like kitchen cabinet, right? You need to have your back office board of directors, people who you can ask for advice, people who you aspire to, people who can be your mentors, even though they may not know you in person, right? But you have read enough about them that you can say, okay, this is what they would do in that situation, and you have a team behind you who can be your power and your engine to push you forward. But of course, like as a leader, right? I was a leader of a large team. There's always a team with me. And it's never that it was just me, of course, right? It was always the team, and it was always our team goal to move forward and keep on pushing and make a difference for the patients that we work with and so on. So well, we're talking here a little bit about my career trajectory. I want to make sure it's clear that it's teams that also in the day-to-day work is what propels us forward and makes a difference.
Indeed, no one makes this journey alone, right?
No.
So I heard earlier, creating this new vision in order to pivot. Maybe you started with this assessment and this recognition that, this is not exactly what I thought it would have been. I like chemistry, but not that much to spend the rest of my life doing it. And then assessing your situation and where you could move from there. So pivoting, creating that vision, connecting or growing your team actually, depending on the ones that you're working directly, and then reaching out to others who can help you to even broaden your vision more. But you also mentioned the why, learning, making sure that you love what you do. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yes. So for me, what was important always to work on certain aspects. So one thing was the equity, health equity. It was really important that we approach certain specific topics, especially the wide population topics. I always loved working on vaccine trials because this is something that impacts vaccines and infectious diseases are very democratic, right? They impact the poor and the rich the same way.
Mhm.
Obviously the impact might be very different, but in that way it's very, and the healthy and the sick, right? So if we talk about prevention, it's really important. So it was always something that I worked towards, is to how can I get myself involved in more vaccine trials and more pediatric vaccine trials. So I have done a lot of this. And just knowing what I like to work on and why I like to work on this, what is really important for me, has helped me to make really good choices. So one of the accidental happy choice was how I ended up leading a team of COVID vaccine clinical trials in my company, which was I was at that time assigned to lead a team in China. And as we know, COVID first was discovered in China. And so the first trials that were coming into the company were coming through China. And so coming through my hands. And I started seeing first COVID trial, second COVID trial, third COVID trial. And I basically picked it up and said, I don't think this is anybody's job in our company, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different studies that are potentially about to begin in COVID. And we have no idea as humanity how to deal with this because it's new. And they said, you found it, it's yours. And so suddenly it just exploded and grew into obviously hundreds and hundreds of studies. And that was endless work around the clock, building a team very quickly of people who can work, chase the sun, right? So that people work in European time zone, then the Americans pick it up, then the Asians pick it up, then the Europeans again, so that we don't have that white space in the process of building the whole structure of clinical trials. Normally it takes about 6 months to start a clinical trial. Our record was 14 calendar days, and it was over Easter. So that kind of shows you how we pulled together everybody to try to accelerate that. But it was very clear, why did I do this, right? Why did I work around the clock to do this? And the answer is because back then, somewhere in the past, I had the very clear answer. I really like to work on vaccine trials. So my radar was on it, and I was able to very quickly identify when it showed up is how can I do this? And it was such a pivotal moment for both my career, for humanity, right, and for where we are today. So I think that those happy coincidences will happen once you have a very clear sense of where you're going.
Yeah, very clear sense of purpose. Allows you to do something that from the very beginning was very clear to me, making a difference in the lives of others. So again, thank you for that. Now, so before we end here, Agata, I think I want to talk about something that I know about your backstory that we haven't mentioned here, and it is pivoting into pistol shooting.
Yes.
Where did that, so you go from, using syringes to using pistols. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So when I reached my 20 years in the industry, I started feeling like, okay, I loved this 20 years. It was meaningful. It was great, but it doesn't bring me the same sense of joy every morning, right? So I need to feel the sense of joy and waking up and being able to learn something and something that excites me. So I said, okay, well, let's go and have a self-revision of what is it that I want to do. And for me, the key was that I wanted to have a healthy routine in my day. I wanted to take care of my own personal health, my mental health, and also have something that will excite me. So I went back and I remembered that when I was 14, for a very short while, I was training rifle shooting, but I was left-handed and left-eyed. They didn't have sufficient gear for me to do that at that time. So I abandoned in 1997. And now I thought, okay, well, rifle was big. Pistols are easier. What if I just start that? So I went to a local shooting range. I got myself an air pistol because we're talking air pistols, right? So it's the sports shooting. And I started the training, and I'm there 20 hours a week now, and I'm really getting into it. It's still a very slow burning process. It's a very difficult sport. Just seems easy because all you do is stand and lift your arm, right? So it can't be that hard. It's not like pushing a bobsleigh down the ice funnel, but it's really exciting, and I'm enjoying that every day. And it hits a lot of my boxes, which is staying calm under pressure, check, right? It's all about mental game. It helps me to maintain health because I'm also training other things so that I can do better at the shooting range. So I'm running and swimming and weightlifting just so that I can build some body. It helps to calm my mind because in order to shoot, you need to get yourself in a little bit meditative state. So it actually accidentally is a sport that has hit a lot of the things I was looking for as to what's my next stage in life. And a little bit like back then in the chemistry degree, I started asking what am I looking for in my next chapter and what I'm not looking for. I think that that's where I'm at right now, and I'm looking forward to competing shortly.
Uh, Wonderful. What an amazing story. It epitomizes this keep on pushing philosophy, Agata. Starting out in chemistry, realizing that this may not be what I want to do when I grow up, as you said, and figuring a way to pivot. And then going from that to the next hill, as you mentioned, the quote, go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll see further. I think sometimes when people hear keep on pushing, they imagine it's all about, the constant striving to achieve the next big goal. But what your story just highlighted to us, and not necessarily making a transition, but incorporating air pistol shooting in your life, is that you just wanted a more balanced life, as I said, a sense of joy. And in identifying this new activity, you're creating a more rounded, more balanced life, as we said. So
And I
definitely.
think that's what's really interesting about it. It's not about pushing, as you said, and striving. It's actually about letting go, right? So when you think about the pivots that I've done, it wasn't about clinging on to something else. It was about what I don't want in my life and what do I want to hold on to, right? So I held on to things that I liked while I was doing chemistry and built a 20-year-long career from it. And now it's the same with this pivot, right? I actually kept the elements that I wanted to keep and just built the rest around it. So it's the opposite of the struggle. It's the letting go part. And I know I'm not the first one who started late. There was at least one Olympian who started in her late 30s, early 40s, and she still made it way into her 50s and 60s into the Olympics. So who
Oh,
knows?
all right. So I will be keeping one eye out for you in the maybe not the next Olympics, let's see, but in future Olympics.
Absolutely.
But I love how you put it. Keep on pushing is not just about the striving or the struggling, it's also about letting go. But what it does in the end is that it helps you to grow. And that's in the long run what we all should be aiming for in life. Um, an amazing, inspiring story, Agatha. Thank you so much for spending time and sharing it with us.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Indeed. Guys, if you love this, not just like, but loved, I'm sure you love it. If you found it inspiring, please do share this with others. And of course, don't forget to follow us and like the page as well. And until we connect next time, yes, you know what to do. Keep on,
Pushing.
yeah.